Welcome to Ravens Redo, where we redo something that the Ravens did in the past. This time, we are doing the 2019 Ravens draft class. So, we have had about 2 seasons to really examine and see what these players have been able to do for the Baltimore Ravens. And if you don't know, it is Joe Noobo. I know it's been a while, guys. Thank you guys for being patient. If you guys have been following me on Twitter, you know what's going on. I've been super busy. I've been working 3 jobs, literally. I've been going to school. It's just been crazy, man. You know, I wake up at 5 a.m. every single day now, and it's just a busy day. I don't have to get into it. You guys don't care. Let's just get into the 2019 Ravens draft class. The fact of the matter is, the draft is upon us. It is draft season. It is the off season. Free agency is approaching us. We're already hearing about Orlando Brown Jr. wanting to be traded. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on, but with draft season approaching us, I figured, hey, what better thing to do than to take a look back at previous draft classes and just kind of regrade them, redraft them even. We could even redo them, right? That's why we brought up Ravens Redo, the new show. Hope you guys like it. If you guys would like to see more, you already know what to do. Smash that like button. Leave me some comments down below, some suggestions, and of course, hit that subscribe button. That is the easiest way to show me that you truly do support what I do here. So as I said, we've had 2 seasons to really examine the 2019 Ravens draft class and see what these players have brought to the team. And we've also had a chance to also see the other players that were drafted after the players that we drafted and see what they've done for the team and basically just kind of have some hindsight and say, hey, maybe this was the right pick. Maybe Eric DeCosta's first draft wasn't as good as we originally thought at the time. And, you know, again, hindsight is 20/20. Not really much you can do now looking back at it. And you never really know, man. Sometimes there's an undrafted player that turns out to be a beast. Sometimes there's a first-round pick that just doesn't pan out. It's kind of like a crapshoot, right? It's kind of like a gamble. That's kind of what the draft is. But I just want to take a look back and see what the Ravens could have done that would probably immensely improve the Baltimore Ravens instead of the moves that they did make at the time. So real quick, before we do the redraft, I just want it to be known that we are trying to get into the mindset of the team at the time. So going into the 2019 season, you know, there was probably some needs that we have now, or even going into the 2020 season that we didn't necessarily have at the time before the 2019 season. For example, safety. We had just signed Earl Thomas, if I'm not mistaken, so that's not going to be a need going into this draft. So for the redraft, what I tried to do is basically get the exact same players that the Ravens did draft originally, but just in different spots. Things that were of better value, just better players overall, really, is what it was when I do the redraft. But before we get into the redraft, let's just get into the regrading. So, as we know, the very first pick for the Baltimore Ravens in 2019 was, of course, at pick 25. And as everybody knew, the Ravens needed receiver help. They still need receiver help, and you wonder why. But the Ravens did end up taking Marquise Hollywood Brown out of Oklahoma. So for the regrade, I am going to have to give this pick a C+. Now, I think that's a fair grade. You know, I probably could have gone lower if I really wanted to be an asshole. If you guys have been watching the channel for a while, you guys know I was not a big fan of the Marquise Brown pick. He was my least favorite receiver in that draft class, in the 2019 draft class. And there was a reason for it. I just, you know, you guys know the type of receiver I like. I'm not really the type to like those speedy, you know, small-bodied receivers. I definitely like those big catch radius possession style red zone threats. That's more my style. So that's one of the reasons why I just didn't really like Hollywood Brown. But also, you know, he would get injured and he had some issues with drops on occasion that I just didn't like what I saw on tape. There was other receivers I really liked. Now, obviously, you go back at the time, and my favorite receiver out of that class was Hakeem Butler. That was a failure, obviously, a big bust. I don't even think he's even played a down in the NFL, so I was wrong on that one. What do you want me to do? But the fact of the matter is there were better options, as Hollywood Brown was the first wide receiver taken in that draft class. And it has to be said that guys like A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, even Deebo Samuel, even Terry McLaurin. These are all receivers that have outperformed Hollywood Brown statistic-wise, production-wise, all of which I would probably rather have taken at that spot than Hollywood Brown, if we're being honest. So that's part of the reason why I give him a C+, looking back on it, because it's not like he's been terrible, right? It's not like Hollywood has been a bust for the Ravens. He has done some good things. He showed up in the playoffs this past season when we needed him to. He made some clutch catches. In his rookie season, he had a really close connection with Lamar Jackson. You got to see a lot of that go on in his rookie season. In his second year, we were kind of expecting him to take that big step forward. Didn't necessarily come, because the problem was that he was coming into his rookie season injured. He had screws in his feet. He was really skinny. He was like 160 pounds. So going into the 2020 season, we expected, hey man, he's getting the screws out of his feet. He put on a little bit of muscle there, working on his route running ability, working with his cousin Antonio Brown, which a lot of people made a big deal about over the offseason, right? So I think that's why we had high expectations for Hollywood, and he did kind of come up short in those expectations. I even said, man, I thought he was going to be at least a 1,000-yard receiver. Obviously, I was completely wrong on that. I missed the mark on that. But yeah, so for now, I do have to give it a C+, especially when you consider the receivers that were taken after Hollywood Brown. It's just, looking back on it, you would probably take another receiver there at that spot, especially if that's who you're going to draft first round, pick 25. There was even other positions that you could potentially consider. I was looking at some guys that were drafted after Hollywood Brown who I would personally consider, and there was actually the pick right after taken right after Hollywood Brown. It was Montez Sweat, defensive end, who ended up going to the Washington football team. I think he has about 17 sacks in his career, if I'm not mistaken, around there. I don't have the exact numbers, but that would totally help out the pass rush. Defensive end or edge rusher was definitely a need for the Ravens even at the time, and I know it still is to this day. But Montez Sweat could have potentially, helped out that edge rushing that we have, that edge rushing problem that the Ravens do have. Now, you could say that since the Washington defensive line is so great, maybe that helps out Montez Sweat, and that's why he has that sack production. That's a possibility. Or maybe he's just a good player, right? So, you never know, though. That's probably something I would have considered doing there. So in the third round at pick 85, they ended up going with Jalen Ferguson, who actually calls himself the Sack Daddy. And as you guys know, we have a nickname for him here. It is Pressure Daddy, because he has not earned the nickname Sack Daddy. Pressure Daddy t-shirts coming out soon. Watch out for that merch. Check it out. Check it out on Teespring. It's in the link below. The Pressure Daddy, Jalen Ferguson, has not earned the Sack Daddy nickname just yet. He has not lived up to his, he broke Terrell Suggs' sack record in college. There was a lot of hype around Jalen Ferguson. But even, before the draft, I had watched tape of Jalen Ferguson, and I was not a big fan of Jalen Ferguson because I'm like, yes, he gets a lot of sacks, but a lot of that seemed to me as situational. A lot of that seemed like the quarterback would actually run into Jalen Ferguson, and he just basically had one move, which was the bull rush, and obviously you're going to beat up on lesser competition, and he would dominate. But in the NFL, you need a little bit more moves, especially if you're a pass rusher, right? Obviously. So there were other options there. A name that I looked at that you could have potentially taken there was defensive end Max Crosby, who ended up getting taken there in the fourth round at pick 106. Max Crosby has absolutely outproduced and outperformed Jalen Ferguson. Now, you could argue maybe he wouldn't fit in our scheme if you want to argue that. But hey, Jalen Ferguson, he hasn't really done anything. So it doesn't hurt to have a guy like a Max Crosby who can actually get to the quarterback. We've seen it happen. That's something that you could have considered there with your third round pick. And then the Ravens went up ahead and followed it with their very next pick at pick 93 in the third round with Miles Boykin. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to give a grade for Jalen Ferguson. I gave him a D. I'm giving him a D because, again, these guys still have time. Maybe Jalen Ferguson will be a late bloomer, but as of right now, what we've seen from Jalen Ferguson, to take him in the third round and for him really not to do anything, I have to give it a D, especially when you consider some of the other options available at that spot. And then, like I said, Miles Boykin followed it up there at pick 93 in the third round. I'm giving him a C-. Now, maybe I'm being a little bit rough on these picks. I don't know. You guys let me know, but I'm just calling it like I see it. What I'm seeing from the production from Miles Boykin, he has not lived up to his build, really, because he's like a bigger bodied possession style receiver. At least that's what we thought. But he just hasn't really done much. Now, he's had some nice catches here and there, but if you're talking about a receiver that can just go up into the air and snatch the ball out of the air, like a bigger body is supposed to do, and on top of that, he has the speed and the athleticism in theory or on paper, but he hasn't really shown that, man. You know, he has the potential to be a really nice 1-2 punch with Hollywood Brown with the speed and then, you know, thunder and lightning type receiving core, right? But it just hasn't been that. It hasn't been that. Miles Boykin has kind of been a disappointment, and there were other receiving options on the board, which we're going to get to later. And then they followed it up with, in the 4th round, they had three fourth round picks here, and we're going to go through them. And with their very first pick in the 4th round at pick 113, it was running back Justice Hill. I'm going to give this pick a C. Justice Hill has shown flashes every now and again. His rookie season, you did see some things here and there. But lately, ever since the Ravens did go ahead and draft J.K. Dobbins the very next season, Justice Hill has kind of taken a back seat. He's been more on special teams. You rarely really see him on the field as a running back. It's just, he hasn't really contributed to the team that much, but he's still doing stuff, you know, especially on special teams. He's a really good special teamer, and that does bring value to the team, especially a team coached by John Harbaugh, who is a special teams coach. So, you know, Justice Hill does bring some value, but I'm still going to give him a C because there were some running back options available later in the rounds that you could have taken. For example, Tony Pollard, he was also taken in the 4th round at pick 128. A guy like Myles Gaskin was taken all the way down in the 7th round at pick 234. These are guys that could really become 3-down backs, which I don't know if I can say the same for Justice Hill. And again, we haven't seen, you know, the apex of what Justice Hill can do, but I'm just saying you've seen production from both a guy like Tony Pollard and Myles Gaskin, which you haven't necessarily seen from a Justice Hill, and those guys were taken after Justice Hill. So then after that, they followed it up at pick 123 in the 4th round with offensive guard Ben Powers, and this one I'm going to give a B-. You know, he hasn't, I mean, he's shown some flashes as well, but he's really starting to come into his own is what it looks like. You know, the Ravens have had problems, especially on the interior offensive line. Center has been a huge problem. Left guard, Bradley Bozeman has been solid. I think a lot of people don't really pay attention to Bradley Bozeman. I know my guy Sonny, shout out to SZG Sports. He really pays attention to the offensive line, so I always listen to what he has to say. And he's saying that Bradley Bozeman has kind of not been that great. So that has been a problem. But Ben Powers, I thought he played well. You know, we had him play towards the end of the season, this past season, and I like what I saw. And I like his aggressiveness, and that's what I love. That's the type of offensive lineman that I want on this team. Somebody that's just going to take your lunch money, that's going to bully the shit out of the defensive lines, right? So that's what I like to see. I like this pick. That's why I'm giving it a B-. I think we still have yet to see the best from Ben Powers, but what we've seen so far, I think has been pretty solid. So hopefully he can turn into our starting guard, our starting right guard. That would be awesome. That way, that's one less position the Ravens have to worry about this offseason. But we'll see. So far, I am going to give it a B-. After that, they followed it up 4 picks later at pick 127 in the 4th round with cornerback Iman Marshall out of USC. And I have to give this pick, I'm sorry to say it, but an F. Iman Marshall has either been injured, or when he's even healthy, he's just not doing anything on the field. It's plain and simple. He hasn't really gotten the opportunity to really show anything, but it's like, if you're not contributing to the team, why are you here? And even at the time, I wasn't a big fan of the pick. I was like, okay, like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, you would watch his tape at USC, and he just seemed like a average at best corner. Like, he did some nice things. I didn't really understand it that much at the time. I still don't. And again, there was better options, especially if you want to talk about cornerback. There's a guy named Amani Oruwariye, excuse me if I mispronounced his name, who got drafted to the Lions in the 5th round at pick 146. If you're going to take a cornerback, why not consider Amani Oruwariye? And again, maybe the scouts liked what they saw from Iman Marshall on the tape. I don't know why, but hey, man, But again, looking back on it, hindsight is 2020. It's tough, man. You just never know. The very next pick was in the 5th round at pick 160. It was defensive tackle Daylon Mack. And I have to give this one an F as well, because Daylon Mack is not even on the team any longer, right? And even when he was on the team, he didn't really contribute too much. He had some, funny moments. He seemed like a funny guy. He was a good dude. So I have to give that one an F. Guys that were taken after him that you would have liked to see, a guy like Darius Slayton, a wide receiver that is on the New York Giants and has potentially become their #1 receiver so far. He's been great, right? So these are the types of guys that you got to look at, but they took Daylon Mack, who's not even on the team anymore. And then finally, they closed out this draft class with quarterback Trace McSorley, the GOAT. As we all know, he has been awesome. You love Trace McSorley. I would not change that pick for the world. I am giving this one an A+. If you guys didn't get it, let's go through the regrade once again. For the first pick, Hollywood Brown, I had to give it a C+. Again, just all the options at wide receiver that were available after that. And also I don't know if I want to say a disappointment, but he just hasn't really lived up to his Hollywood nickname just about yet, even though he has shown up in the playoffs, right? Then the very next pick, Jalen Ferguson, the pressure daddy, I'm giving that one a D. After that, Miles Boykin, I'm giving it a C-. And then you have Justice Hill, the running back, I'm giving that one a C. Ben Powers at offensive guard, a B-. And then cornerback Iman Marshall was the very next pick. I'm giving that one an F. Daylon Mack, defensive tackle, I'm also giving that one an F. And then finally, the last player taken, the one player that I'm giving an A to, is of course Trace McSorley, who gets an A+, because as we all know, Trace McSorley, the GOAT, he throws it on a dime, like he ain't even trying. All right, now it's time to get to the point where we would do the redraft. What would I have done, right? And again, I understand what people are going to say. How are you going to look back and say that the Ravens should have done this? How were they supposed to know? At the time, I'm sure that they thought these picks would turn out to be great for the team, and, they've been okay. And again, there's still a lot more years to go on. We have to see how these guys develop. I'm not trying to say anything, but looking back with hindsight, let's take a look at what we would have done if we were to redraft in the 2019 class with our same picks. So with the very first pick, I was considering taking Montez Sweat because I would have said, okay, there were better receiving options available in the 3rd round that we could have taken, like, Darius Slayton. You could have possibly taken like a Hunter Renfrow even later on in the class. You could have drafted a Preston Williams maybe like in the 5th or the 6th round. There's options that you don't necessarily have to take a wide receiver in the 1st round, but I ended up doing that anyway because you can't pass up on this talent. I was between obviously DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown, as I think that they have totally shown that they've been the best receivers out of that class so far. But I did go with A.J. Brown. If it was me, I would love if we could have A.J. Brown on the Ravens, just his physicality. We saw what he did to us in the regular season, that we just couldn't tackle him, and he just ran into the end zone. I love that, and this guy catches the ball well, great route runner. He just seems like the full package, and he has that body size that you know I love, right? And I also was considering DK Metcalf, but my thing with DK Metcalf is, as good as he is, and he hasn't shown this necessarily in the NFL just yet, but he did have those injury problems in college, and again, maybe he won't have to deal with that, knock on wood, he's a great player, but he did get shut down by like a Jalen Ramsey. And not saying that A.J. Brown is just unguardable. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But I just feel like A.J. Brown would be a better fit for the Ravens, what the Ravens are trying to do. And Lamar throwing to A.J. Brown, I think, would make a lot of sense. So me personally, if it was a redraft, I definitely would have taken A.J. Brown at that spot over Marquise. And then you go to the 3rd round at pick 85. I would have went ahead and taken Max Crosby instead of Jalen Ferguson. Max Crosby has totally, again, outproduced. He has more sacks than Jalen Ferguson does. Max Crosby, I think, would have probably been the better pick there. Go a little bit down there, and, I might reach down the board a little bit here with the number 93 pick, but instead of going with a Miles Boykin, I would absolutely take a Darius Slayton. And I know he didn't go till the 5th round, and, you could probably change some things around, but I think that Darius Slayton has shown that he has the talent to even be like a second round pick. You know, he probably should have been a second round pick with the production that he has had. So I think taking him at the end of the third round isn't too crazy. So I think Darius Slayton, you would probably take him instead of Miles Boykin. You can stick him in the slot, you know, especially after Willie Snead ends up leaving the team, as he probably is going to be leaving after this season. I would imagine he could take over. Darius Slayton, a little bit of a smaller body, has some shiftiness to him. You can stick him in the slot there. Him and A.J. Brown would make for a really nice tandem there for Lamar Jackson to throw to. And then going to the fourth round, the very first pick, like we said, was Justice Hill. I decided to opt, instead of taking Justice Hill, instead of taking a running back there, I did go with Amani Oruwariye, the cornerback, because, I mean, he has shown that he is at least a fourth rounder. He has had good production. He's a good player now. So if you're going to take a cornerback in this draft, as the Ravens did with Amon Marshall later on, why not take Amani Oruwariye, someone that you know is going to produce? And you have options at running back, which we're going to get to a little bit later. At pick 123 in the fourth round, I'm going to stick with Ben Powers, offensive guard. I like what I've seen so far. And, you know, I'm hoping that he continues on that trajectory, and I would love if he could take that starting right guard spot. So I'm fine with that pick. We'll leave it right there as it is. Pick 127 in the fourth round. I actually went, instead of Iman Marshall here, I went with a defensive tackle in Kingsley Keke. He has had like a type of almost, I don't want to say breakout season, but he has started to show himself here in his second season with the Packers. I think Kingsley Keke would have made a lot of sense there instead of going down the draft board and taking Dalen Mack. So I would have taken Kingsley Keke there instead of Iman Marshall, especially since we had already taken Amani Oruwariye earlier on in the draft. And then after that, with pick 160 in the fifth round, instead of taking Dalen Mack, because at this point we would have already taken Kingsley Keke, we wouldn't need the defensive tackle, but we didn't take the running back yet. So at this spot, I would have taken Myles Gaskin, who is on the Miami Dolphins. He has shown the ability to really be that almost workhorse running back. It looks like he's running really well for the Miami Dolphins. So, you know, you switch out a Justice Hill for a Myles Gaskin. I'm sure Myles Gaskin would also probably perform on special teams as well. And then you get him later on in the draft, and you don't have to spend a fourth round pick on a running back. And then finally, I would not change the last pick of the draft, because how could I? It is, of course, Trace McSorley, the GOAT. There is no way I am going to change that pick. I love it. It's going to stay like that, man. So, yeah, that's pretty much it, man. I mean, we did the regrade. We did the redraft. You guys let me know how you feel about it. I know it's probably going to be controversial, as most of my videos are, as most of my streams are. That's just what I do, man. When I like to share my thoughts, my opinions, how I feel about things. And thank you guys, man. I know it's been a while, bro. And again, I don't know how often I'm going to be uploading videos or how often I'm going to be doing streams right now, because the way it is right now, I'm just super busy. I'm basically planning on, whenever I have an idea like this one, I'll upload a video, obviously, or obviously in the draft, I'm going to be doing draft coverage, or if there's a free agency move, if we trade Orlando Brown Jr., I'm going to be talking about all this stuff, obviously. I'm not going to just not talk about stuff that actually happens with the Ravens, but a little more of like the speculation type stuff, or that, I don't know, I'm not feeling that, you know, I'm not really feeling that. I got to be honest with you guys, you know, like, I used to love doing draft breakdowns, watching tape of these guys, but it's like you kind of get disillusioned after a while if like you don't end up drafting the guy that you really fall in love with, right? And it's like, okay, so I watched all that tape for no reason. That's just kind of how it feels for me. And also the same thing with free agents, you know. I don't know, I just feel like I would rather react to what actually happens rather than just sit here and say, hey, maybe the Ravens should do this, or maybe the Ravens should do that. I would rather just say, okay, once the move is done, okay, maybe I would have done this instead, right? I don't know. I think I just do a little bit better that way rather than just speculating on what could happen. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. Again, I hope you guys are patient with me. Just hold on there, man. It's not going to be going on for long that I have to be working these 3 jobs, bro. I'm actually going to be moving pretty soon here, later on in the year. And once I do end up with the move, the rent is going to be pretty much cut in half for me. So I'm not going to have to be busting my ass as much. I'm going to have a lot more time, and I'll be able to spend more time dedicated to this channel and some of my other projects that I do want to work on. So you guys just give me some time, be patient with me, man, but I promise eventually I will get back right to it. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment down below. Check out my merch, Teespring. All those links are in the description. Instagram, Twitter, all of that stuff, man. You already know. Check the description box. Ways to support me, bro. Donations, Cash App, PayPal, all that stuff is down there if you guys want to support. I appreciate y'all, and I will see you in the next one. I don't know when that's going to be, but just be subscribed and have the notification bell turned on, all right?